following program is brought to you by your friends at Podcast One.
Your life, your country. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Podcast.
All right, we have a phenomenal podcast on tap. We are delighted you're with us. And remember, all of our great sponsors help provide this podcast for free and for you every week. Mancrates.com, Stamps.com, and Legacy Box. You're going to learn more about these great special offers throughout the podcast. Boy, we have a lot of news to get to. This could be the battle of the billionaires. 2020, and everyone's focused on Kamala Harris and all of the AOC wannabes out there, Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden. But what if it ends up just being a brawl among the billionaires? And I'm thinking of, well, one in particular.
Businesses, you have to plan for the future. You have to protect yourself from things that are coming down the pike. And that should be no different in government as well. Unfortunately, we do have a president that doesn't see it that way. He failed at business, and now I think it's fair to say he is failing at government. His own administration produced a damaging report showing that we face what they called substantial damage to the U.S. economy, environment, and human health from climate change. And you know what the president said in response? I don't believe it, he said.
Oh, Michael Bloomberg. All right, well, Bloomberg was interesting yesterday for a few reasons, and I'll get to those. He's taking on the far left of the party because he sees where that's going to go. It's going to go into total disaster. But look, he's a liberal as it is. I mean, Mr. Bike Lane, Mr. Ban the Super Gulp, and he's now criticizing the Trump economy. Are you kidding me? It's the strongest economy on the planet right now. It's the envy of the world. Even with the hideous deficits and debt that we have been racking up over decades, the economy is incredibly strong. Joining us now, we're going to talk to him about a lot of this stuff. He's been all over the place. Let me finish. The new book by Chris Christie, Trump, the Kushners, Bannon, New Jersey, and the Power of In-Your-Face Politics. He joins us now, the former governor of New Jersey, and what will obviously be a big best-selling book. Governor, how are you? Good to talk to you.
Great, Laura. How are you?
I'm very well. You know, and I see you hobnobbing with the crowd at Morning Joe. I think really he's really gone over to the dark side. I mean, honestly, Governor.
I was on Fox and Friends before that, so I did Fox and Friends first, Laura. So we're not totally on the dark side.
I got it. Okay, so we're going to get into your book because there's a lot in it. There's a lot that hasn't been discussed, frankly. But I do want to talk about this 2020 roll-up that we're seeing now already. I mean, people would think that it wouldn't happen this early, but it is happening this early. And how far left the Democrat Party has gone. I mean, just in the few years since you've been in politics, how far it's gone. Explain what you see and where you see this going.
Well, it's extraordinary, Laura. I think it's even a shorter period of time. I mean, just what's happened since Donald Trump's election, how far left they've gone, and how the Bernie Sanders wing of the party, the socialist wing of the party, has taken over the Democratic Party. They've totally hijacked them. And when you have guys like Mike Bloomberg, sounding moderate, that's crazy. It's just a really, really insane time for the Democratic Party when you have folks like Kamala Harris suggesting, $32 trillion in additional healthcare spending. I mean, this is stuff that just is insane. And every one of these folks who rolls out and makes the case for socialism, is going to give Donald Trump the opportunity, the president, to have the opportunity to cite Venezuela and all the trouble that's going on down there, and remind Americans that capitalism and democracy have been, the strongest systems that the world has ever seen.
Now, you talked about in your book on page 188 how you traveled across the country with the Republican Governors Association, and you were one of the, I mean, I have to say, I think you're one of the best chairmen. It's not because you're my friend of so many years, but you were just one of the best chairmen of the RGA that I think they've ever had. And you talked about your work to raise money to obviously advertise the Republican agenda. and specifically with people like Sheldon Adelson, and David Koch, and how much money you ended up raising with them. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because the left has Tom Steyer, Soros, obviously Bloomberg, and many, many others in Silicon Valley who are willing to write big checks to even affect local races. I mean, I was hearing about Steyer being involved in the state legislative contest in Arizona last cycle. That's how involved he is in flipping previously red states to purple or blue. Do the Republicans have that type of enthusiasm among the really well-heeled?
I think they do, Laura, and I think that every time they see Tom Steyer and that whole crew, Soros, do their thing, it encourages our folks. We have a lot of those, big Wall Street money folks who are willing to help, and others who have been successful in business, and built businesses across the country. Just to give you some example, now it's 5 years ago now that I chaired the RGA, but in one year we raised $137 million, which at that time was a record. They raised more during this cycle in 2018, over $150 million. So the enthusiasm is there, but it's up to the chairman of the RGA, the chairman of the RNC, and all these folks to go out there and ask. People want to be asked for the money, and it's hard work to travel and sit in their offices and go and ask for the money. But this is the stuff we have to do in order to combat what's going to happen in 2020, which is going to be a torrent of spending from rich liberal causes to try to take down Donald Trump and to try to take away the Republican United States Senate.
Well, they're going to have to, step up. I said this last night in the Ingraham angle, Governor, but when you see how easily lulled into socialism the millennials are, and how excited they are about, as Bloomberg called them, these pie-in-the-sky ideas. And he's a big greeniac himself, but these pie-in-the-sky ideas that will cost our economy trillions and also cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs. But they're lulled into it. They're lulled into it. And so we need a proactive, exciting, emotionally invested CEOs and job creators to be out there in universities, doing debates like Reagan used to do all across the country with anyone who would debate him, and actually start changing minds, because otherwise we're going to lose this generation. We'll lose them forever, perhaps.
Well, listen, there's no doubt that there's a great risk of that right now. And I think that the fact is that what we need to do is to not give up, as you just said, on the college campuses. If all they're hearing is one message constantly, which is what's happening on many campuses now. I mean, I can tell you, our oldest son graduated from Princeton. He was under siege there as a Republican conservative young guy at a liberal, university where all he was hearing was one message all the time. I mean, the college Republicans at Princeton could have met in a broom closet. I mean, it's because there's just no support for it there. We've got to be going out to these places and offering a counter argument and not being afraid to offer a counter argument. And that's one of the things that I loved doing when I was chairman of the RGA, was making side stops at college campuses where I'd go out for fundraising trips or campaigning trips and encouraging our candidates to go to those campuses. We have to get this in their minds. We may not win their heart today, but by the time they're 30, if we've given them, some of the information they need to hear, and then they start going to work and seeing that pay stub with more and more of the money being taken out in taxes, I think a lot of them will get religion really quickly.
Now, and I think, again, it's going to take more than just saying, because I've done the same thing. We're going to be like Venezuela. Well, that doesn't mean anything to these kids, because they see, well, look, I'm already in debt up to my eyeballs from college. Government's in debt $20 trillion. Everybody's in debt. So what if we pile on some more debt? That's the way the younger generation, I think, has been conditioned to think, and it's really the politicians' fault that got them there in the end. Listen, we've created an entitlement society where folks think that they're entitled to all these things rather than having to work for them. And I think for us, it's going to have to be about a message of how you create wealth,
how you create success, the satisfaction of hard work, the satisfaction of building a business, of developing a brand, of accumulating the success that comes along with that because you can help others when you do that. Those are the positive things that millennials want to hear about, where they can also be helping other people. The best way to help other people is creating jobs and creating wealth that can then go to help people who are truly in need, not to have the government do all of that for you, because in the end, the government takes your money away involuntarily rather than you getting to decide where you spend your money.
We're talking to Chris Christie, former governor of New Jersey, and, of course, the author of the new book, Let Me Finish. It's available on Amazon, your local bookstores, and, of course, anywhere books are sold. Governor, when you think about the accomplishments of this administration, which are myriad, economic, renegotiating NAFTA, which nobody thought would be possible, obviously an impressive slate of judges, more to be confirmed, I hope, in the next 6 months. If you really could discern for us and use your discerning eye, take yourself out of this, the old dealings with Kushner and all that, take that out of that for a moment. How would you advise this administration to proceed over the next, let's just say over the next year, while this Mueller thing is obviously winding down?
Well, listen, I think that there's a whole number of things that the president can and should do. I think he needs to bring this current fight to a head inside this next 2 weeks. I think he either has to come to some kind of accommodation with the Democrats, which I think is highly unlikely, or he has to use his emergency powers and force the courts to make this decision. Because otherwise, this will just linger into the 2020 election without things being done, and I think that'll do real political damage to him and to our party. So he's got some work to do over the next 2 weeks in that regard. But where do we go from here? I still think, Laura, that there's more to be done on deregulation and on the economy. And I really think the president, I saw the report, today about jobs for January, which, they're not the official numbers yet. They're the unofficial private sector numbers. But it looks like we've done over 200,000 jobs again in the month of January. I really think the president is the best salesman we have. And I think he needs to get out on the road a couple of days a week and be selling what he's accomplished. You went through just a small list of the things he's accomplished, the major highlights. This is a president who said he was going to get us a better deal with Canada and Mexico, and he did. This is a president who said he was going to cut taxes. He did. He's deregulated. He's put conservatives on the court. But what he really needs to go out and sell is the economy. And he's got to go out and remind people about what we were languishing in under Barack Obama and what his tax cuts, his regulatory reform is done. And so I would say over the next year, unfortunately for the president, I think this is going to be a 2-year campaign for him too.
Yep.
And I don't believe in the Rose Garden strategy.
No.
Donald Trump is not a Rose Garden guy. He is an on the hustings, at the plants, at the factories, at the stadiums and the arenas kind of guy. And I'd put him out on the road starting now 2 days a week. And let him go out and sell the success of this administration, get in the face of Democrats who say there's something wrong with this kind of great economic growth. Let him make that argument, because I think it's a losing argument for 2020.
You wrote this book over a period of time, and now you had some people help you put it together. But can you talk about your process in doing it? I know this sounds like a Brian Lamb question. He did the book.
He did the book. If Brian Lamb had passed you a note.
Well, I know, but it's interesting to me just because I've written 5 books, and each one is like, I've never given birth, but it feels like giving birth. So tell me about the process. A lot of people are criticizing you, of course, for being, you betrayed confidences, you're revealing things that you shouldn't reveal if you're working with someone. I mean, look, we all work with a lot of people, and I don't like the idea of people taking notes and then writing books about anyone, including me. So what about that?
Well, first of all, let me answer that part first, and I'll get to the process. Let me tell you one person who's not upset with the book, the President of the United States. He likes the book, and he thinks the book is very complimentary towards him, and it is, because I tell the truth about our 17-year friendship. I tell the truth about the success of his presidency, and I also tell personal stories between me and Donald Trump about him that helped to humanize him, not have him be the cartoon character that the mainstream media makes him out to be. As you know, Laura, from reading the book, there's great stories in there about him as a dad and him and I talking about fatherhood and his concerns about his role as a father as he's getting ready and understanding that he may actually become president of the United States. People don't think about him in that way, but this is a really caring person, and he loves his family, he loves his children, and, you know, there's a lot of stories in there about our relationship with him, with the First Lady, and me and Mary Pat have a great, deep friendship with them. So I've spoken to the president. The president is not the least bit upset about the stuff that I talk about in the book about him and I. So there's no confidence that's being revealed between me and the president. The president think we're good, funny stories. Now let's talk about process. I had a co-author with me.
I know Ellis. Ellis is a kind of a liberal guy, right? I mean, he's a lib.
He is. He's a lib New York.
Nothing wrong with that, but you know.
But I got to tell you, he is also an incredibly fun, talented guy. And the way we connected, Laura, was he comes from a big Catholic family in New Orleans, and those big Catholic families in New Orleans bear a striking resemblance to those big Catholic families in the Northeast where I came from and Mary Pat came from. So we connected a lot based on our religion and talked a lot actually about that and about the culture that comes from being in a big Catholic family and growing up that way. Ellis went all to Catholic schools throughout, as all of our children have. And so we connected in that way. And what we did was we would pick a different topic for every day. We met twice a week. I would talk to him about a topic. He would ask me questions about the topic. Then we would get we would have it transcribed. And when we looked at the transcript, then we would work together on developing a chapter or two, depending upon the length of the transcript and the topic. And then he would write something up. He would send it to me, and I would heavily edit it. And we'd probably go through 3 or 4 rounds of editing on each chapter before we felt that we were satisfied with the way it looked, the way it sounded. And the most important thing to me was to have it sound like me. And so the process was really arduous. I mean, you know, I haven't given birth either, but I will tell you that when I was going through probably the 4th or 5th edit of the full book, sitting at my kitchen table reading it and marking it up, I was just about done. I'd had enough of myself at that point. So that's kind of what the process was for me. And I think the result of the book is that a number of people who've read it said that they feel like they're sitting across from me hearing me tell these stories. And that's what I really was trying to accomplish, was to let people get a little bit of a view into me personally, who I am and how I became who I am, and the different events that have shaped my life over the course of not only my political life, but earlier with my own family and with my mom and dad and my brother and sister. So there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, I think.
The life is full of, you know, disappointments, things that you wanted that you didn't get. My gosh, I have plenty of those, of those stories to tell. And as interesting it is to dissect, you know, Kushner and bad feelings about what, you know, you prosecuted his father for tax evasion and witness tampering, and that's all in the book, and that is fascinating for people who haven't had a chance to either watch Governor Christie on television or get the book. Again, it's called Let Me Finish by Chris Christie. Aside from that, which is fascinating, your own personal struggle to come to terms with the fact that you were not going to be on the inside, the unceremonious and wrong-headed decision to remove you from a one-on-one reporting role and running the transition, which, again, people listening to the podcast, they might not understand. Well, transition, why do you have a transition team when you're still in the middle of a campaign? And I was personally really upset by that. I mean, I was upset. So I can't imagine how you dealt with that, given the fact that you were the first governor to endorse Chris Christie. I believe you were the first governor and first of the 20, the major 2016 figures you did. So how did that feel? How did you cope with that just as a person, Governor?
You know, in the immediate aftermath of it, Laura, which was 2 days after the election, I was angry and I was upset. But I will tell you that lasted for a few days. And then I said to myself, well, you can either sit here and feel badly for yourself, or you continue to push forward to try to help in whatever way you can because you believe in the president and you believe in what he's going to try to do for the country, and you're going to try to make him better. So even, Laura, if it was maybe 5 or 6 days after I had been fired, the president started calling me again and asking me for advice. And so, I had a choice to make. Do I just not take the calls and say, listen, you fired me and I'm done, or do you continue to do that, not expecting you to get anything, because clearly I knew that wasn't going to happen, but because you care about the country and love the country. And so the way I dealt with it personally was to do a few things. One, to kind of vent to my wife. And Mary Pat, we've been married for 32 years, and so I have no better friend and no better sounding board to kind of vent my own frustrations and anger about it. But then I also wanted to set a positive example for my kids. And what really motivated me was to show them that you just don't ever quit. You get knocked down, you get back up. You get knocked down, you get back up. And that the only thing you can control in your life is your own attitude and what work ethic you bring to what you do every day. And so, between having a full-time job as the governor of New Jersey and continuing to do that every day, I made myself available to talk to the president and put myself in there, but made sure that I let him know I had no interest in a job, because I was done with that at that point and didn't want anything. And I kind of cataloged that in the book about going to Bedminster when he was doing the job fair, as I called it, at Bedminster. Mm-hmm. And I sat down with him and he said, so what are you interested in? And I said, nothing. I'm not interested in anything. I said, I'm interested in helping you however I can, providing advice. And I think letting go of the idea,
liberating,
that I wasn't going to be in the administration, and that was okay. And I'll tell you, in a lot of ways, I think I've been an even better advisor to him in some ways than I could have been if I were pigeonholed on the inside, because I can call him and talk to him about anything. And so it's not easy, Laura, and it was not pleasant to have that done in public. And, some of the people that I talk about in the book were awful to me personally, leaking with no names attached to it. Terrible stories about me in the aftermath of the transition to try to justify their conduct. And, it was hurtful. But you realize in this business that's what you go through, and you push your shoulders back and you walk forward. And that's been what my whole life has been all about. And I think it's led me to have some of the success that I've had. Now,
are you saying I actually decided not to put in a whole bunch of stuff in my last book because I thought it would be disrespectful and betraying confidences. I could have put in a lot of stuff in my book, Billionaire at the Barricades, but I had it printed and I X'd the pages out of my edits. I said, no, I can't do it. I just can't do it. So you're saying the president didn't mind the stuff you wrote about some of the debate prep sessions, which I mentioned on page 308 and 309, by the way, because I was there for some of those as an observer, really. But they didn't mind that? The president wasn't upset about that?
No, and I think because, listen, we all have dozens more stories that we could tell that we have discretion, right, in not telling. And so the stories I told were to try to give people a window into how somebody prepares to run for president, what you do. And I think every one of those stories about the president there, tell a certain part of his personality that I think people will be interested to know about and create a much more complete picture of him. And I know that, even yesterday, I got contacted and told, and heard, loved the stuff I was saying on TV about him and about, our experiences together. So I think, listen, the president is an adult. He understands this business, and he understands too that, I've also shown a great deal of loyalty to him over all these years, and that I wouldn't do anything in this book to betray that loyalty. But for those who have not shown loyalty, for those who have put their own self-interest in front of the president's interest, in front of the country's interest, you know what? I'm calling those people out too, because if you're gonna engage in the behavior, Laura, then you have to be held accountable for it.
The best thing for any administration is to have folks who are close in there who've actually run things. Like run, but you have to have an experience in government. The idea that you can have no one with experience in government, well, we saw how that worked out for the first 60, 80, 90 days. I mean, opportunity squandered. And again, this is coulda, shoulda, woulda, but we're talking about Governor Christie's book here. Let me finish. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. I mean, you could have gotten this immigration thing done in the first 100 days. You got his wall done, too.
There's no doubt. And listen, that's
travel ban.
Having worked for 8 years with a Democratic legislature in New Jersey, where you learn how to get these things done and how to work the legislative process. And also on the travel ban stuff, we had executive orders drafted that had been reviewed, as you know, by some of the best lawyers from Republican administrations in the Justice Department and White House counsel that would not have been Steve Bannon on the back of an envelope efforts that wound up getting overturned in court.
No, that was
and so those are the frustrations. I will tell you, when you talk about anger and frustration, for me, the first 100 days of the administration had a lot more of that than even the immediate aftermath of being fired from the transition, because we were missing those opportunities. So,
I think I'm excited to talk to you offline about some of the things that didn't make the book that I know about that aren't in the book, but maybe that'll be for another book. I'm like, okay, we could have added this. Okay, I get why he No, so it's fun. It's fun actually, since some of the stuff I was around that
you see some of the editing.
Yeah, some of the stuff taken out there. Governor Christie, come on TV soon. It's always great to have you on. Let me finish. He had a front row seat.
And thanks for letting me be a part of the Ingram podcast. I'm excited about it.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Chris Christie. Let me finish. Pick it up, bookstores everywhere. You're listening to the Laura Ingram podcast. And remember, Valentine's Day, gals, a clear path for you to find a new type of gift that will wow and surprise your special someone. And that means you have to head to Man Crates. Man Crates knows that guys, they don't want flowers, they don't want candy, and all that stuff. They want stuff they're going to use and love. And when it's packaged in a cool wooden crate with a crowbar, I mean, come on, just that in and of itself is great. So we're talking about great things like personalized barware. You'll get thought of every time he, takes a shot of his favorite, tequila, whiskey, water, pizza grilling crate. You got a great food crate with incredible meats and cheeses and salami, beef jerky. It's awesome. It's a great idea for a company, too. I wish I thought of it. Okay, so you can give an incredible Valentine's Day gift, and you get a 100% satisfaction guarantee, but just for Valentine's Day. You get 14% off when you spend $100 or more at mancrates.com/Ingram. That's 14% off. Spend $100 or more at mancrates.com/Ingram, mancrates.com/Ingram. Back on the Laura Ingram podcast, we are locked and loaded, ready to go. We have a phenomenal Ingram angle tonight, Fox News, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Always set your DVR. And, of course, if you want to be part of the fun, living, learning, laughing, here on the Ingram podcast, just email us, ingram.podcast@gmail.com. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know what we're talking about every day. So ingram.podcast@gmail.com, and follow me on Twitter @IngramAngle, and also Facebook. And you'll be alerted to what we're chatting about, and you can be part of the fun. And loving our callers and loving the interaction. So make sure to do that. All right, we have to talk about the battle of the billionaires, because whether Howard Schultz gets far in this 2020 showdown or not, it doesn't really matter. He's already made a difference in the conversation. He's already made a dent in understanding, I think, for people, so they get closer to seeing just how far left the party has gone. He was on The View yesterday with Meghan McCain and Joy Behar and company. This is part of the exchange.
You're a glaring example that as long as you're a billionaire, you can run for anything. And my problem with politics right now is the influence of money. And no shade at you, but you do have to be a billionaire to run as an independent. That's why Michael Bloomberg's the other example you've given.
Well, but you can't buy the presidency. The American people are going to decide. But let me just make one point. No, can I?
Well, they didn't think that Donald Trump could buy the presidency. Why is Joy Behar laughing? They were laughing at the idea that Trump could ever be president in 2016. Now, anyone can buy the... Really? They really think that? Anyone can buy the presidency? Sure, it helps to have money. But the money is all on the side of the left now. The money is all on the side of the Democrat Party. You got Steyer, you got Soros, you got all the high-tech billionaires. You have Jack Dorsey at Twitter. You have Sergey Brin in the crowd, over from the founding of Google, and so many other high-tech wizards out there who are pouring money into national campaigns, local races, to flip, as I told Governor Christie, previously and solidly Republican states Democrat. That's their goal. So that's where all the money is. So for Meghan McCain, to say, well, I'm tired of money in politics. Okay, tell me something we haven't heard before. Everybody always says that. It makes no difference. The bottom line is you have to persuade people in the end that you're going to raise their standard of living. I think that's what people want. They want more prosperity. They want peace. And they want a sense that, they can pursue happiness in their own way. For me, it's like most of the country is the Leave Us Alone coalition. Stay out of our lives. Stop micromanaging our lives. We want to be able to get a decent job, make a decent wage, and take care of our families. And every once in a while, take a vacation. That would be nice. And live in freedom. That's what most people want. And of course, it's about you want to have a quality education. Of course, you want to be able to, if your kid wants to go to college, send your child to college. Of course, you don't want health care to bankrupt you. That's for everybody. And if you're really wealthy, you don't have to worry about that stuff for the most part. You just don't. But Howard Schultz, back to him. So he's doing this book tour now. He's the former CEO of Starbucks. He has these Democrats' panties in a bunch. Oh, they're so worried about him. And part of the reason they're worried about him is because he doesn't let comments stand like Kamala. I started by calling her Kamala, then I did Kamala, and now I'm on to the correct way to pronounce it, which is Kamala, like the punctuation mark. Kamala. Okay? For some reason, Kamala to me sounds better, but I'll call her Kamala. So he was commenting on CBS this week about abolishing entire industries with one fell swoop.
Senator Harris is saying she wants to abolish the insurance industry. That's not correct. That's not American. What's next? What industry are we going to abolish next? The coffee industry? I mean, the Republicans want to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. I don't agree with that. The Affordable Care Act should stay and it should be refined. But to think we should get rid of the insurance industry, again, this is exactly the situation. It's far too extremes on both sides, and the silent majority of America does not have a voice.
Well, now he's picking up on, of course, that was Richard Nixon's theme, the silent majority, and Donald Trump picked up on that. The silent majority were the blue-collar voters who turned out for Trump. That's a silent majority. But look, Schultz is illiberal. Don't get me wrong. He's liberal just like Bloomberg is liberal. But they're also really smart. They worked in the business world. Obviously, they ran, and Bloomberg runs one of the most successful companies on the planet. And you can't just wave a wand and wipe out entire industries. That is a nightmare for our economy. And just the insurance industry alone, and believe me, I am no fan of the insurance industry, 500,000 jobs will be lost under this Medicare for All plan. $32 trillion of costs added up to the American people. And by the way, when you start raising this issue with people, the cost, oh no, we're going to end up saving all this money. Oh, really? But big government is going to save money. You explain that to me. Well, your taxes are going to be higher. Oh, by the way, the Kaiser Family Foundation study on this is awesome. Okay, because it's disturbing on the one hand, because it's like 56% of those surveyed actually believe that, Medicare for all is a good idea. Okay. However, when you actually then inform people that this could come at a hefty increase in your taxes, you have to pay more to get it. All of a sudden, the support plummets to 37%. Okay, so down. And then when you tell them, oh, and by the way, it might eventually end Medicare because, of course, you'll run out of money. And, the predictions are, Ramin Oskouei says, 5 years, you're done, out of money. Oh, then it drops to 32%. So again, the more people learn, the less they like it. So it's incumbent upon Republicans people like yours truly, to be digging into these issues in a meaningful way and informing the next generation, the millennials, Generation Y, all these. What now? You say you want this, but let me tell you what it'll look like. And let me tell you what it's going to cost you. And let me tell you what it's going to do to the number of doctors who have already said they will retire. They will leave the profession or they will not go into the profession. You can't expect people to go through the rigors and the huge expense of medical school only to be told they're basically going to make less than a mechanic makes for office visits, for procedures. Oh, and by the way, you have to pay $300,000 a year for your insurance costs to cover all the plaintiffs' lawyers who are going to be coming after you for med mal. Okay, so you can't expect doctors are going to do that. They're just going to say no, not going to do this. And so when you explain stuff to people, they get it. But when you say, Medicare for all, it's all going to be free, it's all going to be good, it's not going to be a bad thing. Well, then of course it's going to sound good. And that's what Kamala Harris was selling at her town hall. And again, with the laughter, and she has the cool factor. She's the it girl of income redistribution. It all sounds so pleasant.
You support the Medicare for All bill, I think initially co-sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders. I believe it will totally eliminate private insurance. So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care. And you don't have to go through the process of going through an insurance company, having them give you approval, going through the paperwork, all of the delay that may require. Who of us has not had that situation where you got to wait for approval and the doctor says, well, I don't know if your insurance company is going to cover this? Let's eliminate all of that. Yeah. Let's move on.
Let's move on. That's a plan. That's her plan, actually. Let's just move on. By the way, we also have, check this out, Ocasio-Cortez. Okay. She is, she's the real it girl, but she can't run for president in 2020, although she can make a lot of people kiss her ring. So she can't run for president. She's too young. But she responded today on Twitter to Howard Schultz, and I'm going to read it to you. So she's firing off the tweets. I mean, she's like the Donald Trump of the Democrat Party, although with no experience. Okay, so she says, why don't people ever tell billionaires who want to run for president that they need to, quote, work their way up, or that maybe they should start with city council first? She tweeted, well, many of the CEOs who are the most successful in the world, AOC, have worked their way up, or have started companies on their kitchen tables, or went into debt, or went bankrupt a few times, and then finally were able to seek their dream through hard work. But this is the same nonsense of people saying, oh, well, you didn't build that. That's a version of you didn't build that, right? You didn't build that. All right, you didn't build that. You know what? You said that. You didn't build that. The workers built that. Well, yeah. Who's paying the workers? That was Obama's line. You didn't build that. That's a version of that. It's an updated version of you didn't build that from Ocasio-Cortez. Why don't people take... So again, the demonization of the wealthy, this is a tired old tactic of the left. And they're trying to do this because it's, number one, it's easy to do, especially with dumb college students. Many of them are very smart, but the ones who aren't, they're the ones who have all the time in their hands to go protest and register people to vote and walk around with their Bernie Now, clipboards and, canvass the campus to register. I mean, these are people with all the time in their hands. They're the ones who like to, the billionaires. We got to get all more money from the billionaires. If you taxed all the billionaires at 95%, you still couldn't come close to paying for any of these, as Bloomberg called them, pie in the sky programs. Let's go to Keith in Oklahoma here on the Laura Ingraham podcast, as the billionaires are now turning on the freshman lefties and the political newbies in the 2020 race. Keith.
Good morning, Laura.
Hey,
go ahead. What I don't understand is why the Republicans don't talk more about what free means. I mean, you're talking about free health care. In Denmark, they pay 42% taxes, 20% VAT taxes. So is that free? I mean, that's an income from $35,000 to $68,000 a year that's paying 42% taxes. I don't consider that free when I have to pay it in taxes.
Well, again, this is incumbent upon the Republicans and CEOs and all business leaders who have a brain in their heads to be vocal and be creative and be passionate in their defense of the free market. Because, again, remember with whom you're dealing. Young people have been spoon-fed socialism, warmed over socialism as economics in college and even in high school. They have been propagandized to by deeply anti-American professors who want to blow the whole capitalist system up because most of them have never worked a real job. Sorry, they've been at the university setting and very insulated. So you're dealing with in many ways, politically, they're undeveloped, they're uneducated, although oftentimes they have impressive advanced degrees. And that's really the fault of Republicans. I mean, and the business leaders. You know, they run for cover every time a controversy hits the airwaves. They run for cover. They're afraid. And I don't, Keith, you're absolutely right though. Why do people not understand this? There is no such thing as a free lunch or free health care or free anything. Somebody pays some huge sum to make it happen for you for free. And there aren't enough rich people to pay for all the freebies that these people want. There just aren't. And the Wall Street Journal did that calculation, oh gosh, it must have been 3 or 4 years ago. I think if you tax all the billionaires like 92% or 95%, still doesn't fund any of this stuff for, more than like 1 year. I'll get the exact formulation, but it's staggering. And it gives you a sense of just how unattainable this nirvana of socialism really is. But it's wealth confiscation. It's not even a tax. I think, Keith, you reminded me to say this. This is all out confiscation of wealth. And we have different forms of this happening all over the world. You see this in Zimbabwe, where farmers have been kicked off their lands. And I met one of them 2 summers ago, and it was a stunning tale, he told me. So they are literally taken from their land. They're taken from their lands, and they're told, okay, here's your reimbursement. And it's like $100 for 1,700 acres of ranch land. And the decree is we need to repatriate. We need to give reparations. We're repatriating the people to your land who had it stolen from them, or there was wrongdoing done in the past to people. And even though you didn't personally do it, we, the government, believe it is equitable that others get the proceeds of your hard work. So that's the extreme form of wealth confiscation, but that's happening. Obviously, it happened in communist Russia, it's happening now in South Africa to some extent. And it's always done under the guise of equity and fairness. And watch for the terminology and listen carefully to what they're saying. When they say wealth inequality, they mean confiscation. When they say healthcare inequality, they mean wealth transfer. Because I promise you, there will be no health equality in a Medicare for all program, because the super rich and the very rich will always get their care and everybody else will be waiting in line. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham podcast. Remember, if you want to be part of this fantastic journey in living, learning, and laughing, all you have to do is email us at ingram.podcast@gmail.com. That's ingram.podcast@gmail.com. And if you're enjoying this podcast as much as I'm enjoying hosting it, then you're going to give our sponsors and give their services the patronage that they deserve. And I have great news for you. You now do not have to worry about driving to the post office. We have a millimeter of snow in Washington, and so that means everyone's petrified of driving. But if you don't want to drive to the post office wherever you are, whatever your weather is, you don't have to. It's ridiculous that anyone still does this. All you need to do is go to stamps.com. And it's faster, it's easier, it's your way to print your own U.S. postage. The mailman will still pick it up, take it away, and it's no big deal. You don't have to lug these packages or letters to the postal service. to the post office anymore. And you also get discounted postage rates, so I like that a lot. You can get a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a digital scale. So I love that. This is all good. Stamps.com, click on the microphone, top of the homepage, and type in Ingram. That's Stamps.com, enter Ingram. All right, joining us now is my dearest of dear friends, Congressman Steve Scalise from the great state of Louisiana. He's been the House Majority Whip, and now, of course, he's the House Minority Whip. He's the author of Back in the Game, just came out a few months back, and he's with us now as we're trying to unpack what the latest is on these border negotiations and whether or not there will be any deal struck. He joins us now. Congressman, great to talk to you. How are you?
Laura, great to be back with you and doing really well. I appreciate it. And, just getting better every day and fighting to try to work with this president to get some more big things done, even with Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, which, as you know, is a challenge because she's moved so far to the left. But we still got a lot of big things we can do in spite of her.
Now, the headlines are GOP leaders signal no taste for renewing the shutdown over the wall. What does that mean, since the president promised a wall and he needs to be able to deliver on that, he believes, in order to get reelected and also to keep, of course, more importantly, our country safe? So if the leaders, which I imagine is Kevin McCarthy, you, and a few others in the House, if the leaders don't want it, well, does that mean Nancy gets her wish?
No, and I mean, every time I've been asked, I've said, we need to secure our border. That's what this has been about from the very beginning. Nobody started off saying they want to shut the government down. What we've said, what President Trump said, is we need to secure the border. It's not a want, it's a need. The people who risk their lives, Laura, to keep our country safe, the men and women out on the Border Patrol, the ICE agents, they put a request together. They said it's going to cost $5.7 billion to do all the things necessary to secure our border. And that's what President Trump submitted to Congress. We passed that in the House when we were still in the majority last year. And so right now you've got an impasse because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to secure the border. And so we had a shutdown. During the shutdown, Pelosi said she wouldn't negotiate during a shutdown. Well, so the shutdown's over for a brief time. It's time for Nancy Pelosi to put a number on the table. If she doesn't agree with the $5.7 billion that our men and women who risk their lives say they need, then what is she willing to put on the table, and why isn't she willing to fully support what it takes to secure the border? That's where the debate needs to be. Not about whether or not there'll be a shutdown, but whether or not Democrats will work with the president to secure the border.
Are the Democrats winning the messaging war on this, though?
I think they've been winning the stall game, kind of running out the clock. That's all they do. They don't negotiate. They just sit there and, okay, it's day 20 and it's day 25 and it's day 35, and they're just sitting there not putting an offer on the table. I think, Laura, it's real important that we have the State of the Union next week and that people tune in. I think one of the reasons Nancy Pelosi wanted to cancel the State of the Union is because she doesn't want the American people to hear what President Trump has to say about why we're in this fight, about why we need to secure the border, including building physical barriers. And the president said, you can call it whatever you want, a wall, a fence. We need physical barriers to stop bad people from coming in while you bulk up your points of entry. And so there are a growing number of Democrats, by the way, Laura, during this whole shutdown. The number was growing of Democrats saying that we need physical barriers. Yeah. Even Steny Hoyer, the majority leader, broke from Nancy Pelosi. She's saying walls are immoral. He said they're not immoral and that we need physical barriers as part of this solution. So now's the time to actually put a dollar amount. The president's put a number down at $5.7 billion. The Democrats have to put some number on the table, whatever it is, and they have to back it up. I hope it's somewhere close to what we need, $5.7 billion. And if not, they need to explain to the American people why they don't want to secure the border. Yeah, so the president's going to lay out this case on February 5th. I hope everybody tunes in, and I think you'll see an increased level of people watching a State of the Union than you've seen before because of all of this fight.
Yeah, I want to play for you Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, who, when he's not apologizing for the anti-Semitic tendencies of some of the freshman members, he's talking about the evils of the wall. Let's listen.
We've consistently said that we do not support a medieval border wall from sea to shining sea. However, we are willing to support fencing where it makes sense but it should be done in an evidence-based fashion.
Evidence-based fashion. They just found 276 migrants in the New Mexico desert. I believe it was the New Mexico desert. They found hundreds and hundreds in a group in the last 2 and 3 weeks. Just last week, 276. But it's a medieval wall, and we're just going to have a bunch of drones and sensors, I guess, for the rest of it. When I hear drones and sensors, I hear you're not serious. You want people to come in, be released into this society, and then maybe 7 years later they will or not show up for their hearing.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, if you want fact-based, our experts, the Department of Homeland Security, has put together a detailed breakdown of what is needed and the facts behind it, what's really happening at the border, the human trafficking that's coming across, the murderers that are coming across. Laura, I pointed out in my district, I got a call during the shutdown from the mother of a fire chief who was killed by an illegal alien. Spencer Chauvin was killed. He's got a young family, wonderful person. He was serving. He was out responding to a call, and an illegal alien killed him. This happens all the time, way too often. How many more Spencer Chauvins does Nancy Pelosi want? And so our experts have said this is what it's going to take to provide that security. We shouldn't, in Congress, be micromanaging and telling our Border Patrol agents how to build a fence, what kind of fence, where to build it. They say it's over 500 miles. They know where the bad people are coming in, and there's nothing there to stop them. Let's put the physical barriers up. Let the experts go do it. You don't want members of Congress out there with shovels digging some kind of, fence that's going to fall down. The experts know what it's going to take. They risk their lives to keep our country safe. Let's give them the tools they need.
We're talking to Congressman Steve Scalise from the great state of Louisiana here on the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. And Congressman, the people listening to this, I think, want your bird's eye inside view on how the Republicans can recapture the narrative. I mean, the jobs report coming out, it looks like 200,000 jobs created in January. Stunning. I mean, this is with all the stuff with the shutdown. This is with everything else that was going on, the headwinds and the Mueller investigation report looming. All this stuff, this is unbelievable news. Chris Christie was on earlier with me, and he absolutely believes that the president must hit the road twice a week. And, I mean, this has to be a campaign for the next 2 years, really, for him, as he governs and does everything else. But we need more people. I mean, you're out there all the time. But we need more people preaching the gospel of this Trump economy, which is hot and which is meaningful with wages rising. It can't just be in the negative stuff all the time. Numbers for the House Republicans, the numbers are down to, or the Republican approval rating is now down to apparently 37%, according to The Hill. It was up at 45% in September. Now the GOP's favorability is 37%. With this economy, that's crazy.
Yeah, the drumbeat by the mainstream media is just to beat the president up every single day, and it's Russia, and it's collusion, and it's all foolishness. It's witch hunts. The president, I agree, needs to get out on the road and tell that story. Everywhere he goes, he gets massive crowds for it. You've seen it. It's phenomenal, the attraction that people have to what this president's doing. He's getting our economy back on track. Look, what we did with tax cuts is that in and of itself has transformed our economy. But what the president's done on regulatory sanity, just restoring rule of law in the regulatory state where these crazy agencies, it was EPA or NLRB or the whole bunch of them that would literally wake up every day saying, how do we put American jobs out of business? How do we run these jobs out in the country? And they were doing it. And President Trump has really gotten the regulatory state
Congressman, I have good news, too. I have good news. The Democrats aren't doing much better. Their approval is holding steady at 38%. So y'all are at 37. Yeah. Democrats are at 38. And I take that with the, as you said, the drumbeat against the president, constant. That's an opening.
And by the way, Laura, Pelosi's numbers went down during the shutdown.
Right, I saw that.
The mainstream media won't report that. Her numbers went down because people saw her out there blocking border security. She's against the walls are immoral comment was ludicrous. I'm glad she said it because it shows people.
No, these are extremists. They're fanatics.
Wants to secure the border. Pelosi doesn't want to secure the border.
No, these people are fanatics. Clear as day. Open borders, globalist fanatics. I'm sorry, but it's become a party of zealots, fanatics, rabidly anti-freedom.
There's growing anti-Semitism as well by some of the members on the Democrat side, Laura, we all need to call that out as well. We've been very vocal in calling out white supremacy and any kind of other hatred. But on the Democrat side, you don't see them calling out their members that are associating with vocal anti-Semite leaders. The anti-Semitic language they're making themselves. Some of them are joining this anti-Israel divest movement that's dangerous and harmful to Israel.
You're talking about, just for people who don't know what you're talking about, Congressman Scalise is referencing Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib's key fundraiser. This guy is a founder of this Palestinian group, and his name is Abdel Kader Maher. I talked about him last night on the Ingraham Angle, and he had both the audacity, the brazenness, and the deeply anti-Semitic core within him to motivate him to share a story on Facebook about how Jews aren't actually really Jewish and that they all control the media. So basically, you can't trust them. I'm watching the video right now, by the way, on the Facebook group that a Congresswoman Tlaib is a member of. So imagine if one of us were on a Facebook group willingly, and we were part of an organization, this Palestinian Free Congress group, whatever the heck name it is, and then it turns out that they were sharing anti minority videos or racist videos. Oh my gosh, it would probably never work again.
Everybody would be calling it out, and they'd be condemning people. Where is their outrage on this side? The anti-Semitism is real. It's alarming. It's growing on the Democrat side, and they refuse to call it out. So I think it's important that we all shine the light. Sunshine, they say, is the best disinfectant. This needs to be disinfected.
Do you think, Congressman, that the Trump cabinet is out there enough? I mean, I think people think I'm a broken record on this, but I work for Reagan, so I know the messaging consistency that you need in order to drive home a narrative. I never see Rick Perry. I never see Ben Carson. I sometimes see Alex Azar, who's brilliant at HHS. He's my friend, but he's also beyond brilliant. Yeah. But I don't see people other than Mike Pompeo. Where's Larry Kudlow? I don't see anybody out there except the president, you, and a few others. What is going on?
Well, I think everybody needs to get out there more. I know I saw Secretary of Homeland Security Nielsen on the border. She did another border tour the other day. I think everybody needs to get out and show that. Show what's happening. Show why we're fighting for the American people. This isn't about just some campaign promise the president made, which, by the way, he has been following through on all of his promises, which is something we should be celebrating, and it's helping get the economy going and helping American families get more wages. But what he's talking about here is about securing the border to keep our country safe. And it's not just the border states. It's not Texas's problem alone or Arizona's problem alone. I mean, San Diego, the poor mayor of Tijuana, is saying stop these caravans because it's not just hurting America, it's hurting Mexico. But it's hurting a state like Pennsylvania. You go look at the opioid problem in some of these states all around the country. Those drugs are coming from the open, porous borders in Mexico. That's why we need to stop this. That's why we need to secure the border.
Congressman, it's always just so wonderful to talk to you. I love the fact that you are joining us on the Laura Ingraham podcast because it gives us more time than television, which is so short, and we actually can get into issues in depth, which frankly is necessary in what is going to be a very tumultuous next few months and next year and all the way up to 2020. Congressman, come back soon. Give my love to your family, and we'll chat soon.
Always great to be back with you, Laura. Take care and keep getting the truth out there.
I'll do it. No worries. Up on the line, let's go to John in New York. Johnny, welcome.
How you doing, Laura?
I'm great.
I'm listening to your conversation here, and sometimes I kind of wonder, how did we get here? We have all these people coming to our country, and what do they see? They see a divisive country where everybody's being the entire narrative is separate you by religion, separate you by race, separate you by sexual orientation, whatever group, what sports team, it doesn't matter. And so they go into an enclave, and they have no reason to assimilate because that's not what's being promoted. That when they're brought here, that is not what's being promoted. And so it's just a continuation of this progressive narrative of, hey, you're special. We're going to take care of you as special, and we're going to treat you better. So they bring the same things that they had and they try to bring it here. We see the same thing in Texas and Colorado. People moving out of California because of high taxes, because of all the infringements and how terrible it is there. Then they go to the Colorado, Texas, and want to do the same programs, do the same things they just left and complained about.
Well, a lot of what's interesting and what I'm finding, the more I have a chance to chat with people who aren't in politics. I learn the most from people who are just actually doing real stuff, creating products, businesses, hiring people, reformatting businesses. I'm going to be doing a lot of interviews over the next year and the next few years with CEOs and entrepreneurs, because for me, that's where the magic of so much of America is today. It's obviously in the military with our service and our first responders and their sacrifice, and moms who are doing great work at home. That's a given. But overlooked are the entrepreneurs in this country who have to cut through red tape, who have to deal with lawyers, who have to deal with regulatory hurdles, oftentimes way too onerous. And they have such a unique perspective on what works. And a lot of them won't agree politically. I mean, it's diverse people, obviously. Businesses are run by people who are liberal, conservative, independent. But I'm talking about what works on a daily basis in life. Now, does it work, for instance, well in an organization if people speak 5 languages in close quarters? And they're not speaking to each other, they're speaking their own language, maybe on the phone with colleagues, but they're not able to communicate with each other. Of course not. You need people to speak with a common language. In our country, it's English. It should be. And you need people to have a common understanding on where we want to take the business. In the next 3 months, we need to grow by X, otherwise I'm going to have to cut staff. In the next 6 months, we have to have 2 new, updates on our app, or we're going to have to completely do a redesign and get 5 more investors. In a year, we have to see a clear path to profitability, or we're not going to do a second round of financing. There are steps that you have to take in order to be a successful business if you do it right. And I will tell you this. We don't do these in politics. We don't teach this to kids in school. Instead, our caller is exactly right. John's right. You come here and you're immediately put in, if you come from, let's say you come from Germany, you're immediately in the international students group. Why? If you come here from Asia, do you want to be a member of the Asian Students Association? No, I'm going to be a student here. If you happen to be African American and you grow up, whether it's in New Canaan, Connecticut, a very rich area, or you grow up in in Compton, do you want to be a member of a certain black fraternity? But you see how we're all driving into this box of sameness. While we talk about multiculturalism, while we talk about tolerance and openness and let's all get along and let's be together. And so why are we all separating? Why are we forcing kids into these boxes? Color shouldn't define us. It shouldn't limit us. And where you come from shouldn't limit you. It doesn't mean I love languages. I love people that speak other languages. It's cool. It's awesome. I wish I spoke more languages. But bringing us together to achieve a common goal, whether in a business or a classroom or in a government committee meeting, it's really hard to get anywhere if you don't agree on the basics. If you don't even agree on the language you're going to speak, or if you don't even agree that, we want to make sure that everyone can make most of their decisions on their own because the government certainly shouldn't be making those decisions, then you don't agree on a foundation, then you're just forget it. And then you just devolve into finger pointing, yelling, pejoratives. You don't care about people. You lack compassion. And I just think we learn a lot more in many ways from people who are creators, on the ground creators of wealth, opportunity, companies, small, medium. I tend to like small businesses because they're in touch with the community. was happening at the moment in that block, in that town, dealing with the town council on, political or an economic or a regulatory environmental matter, you learn a lot. And this top-down heavy approach, you must go into this box. You must drive a car that is green by the year 2040 or else. That's a heavy-handed approach to living, and I don't think it works. It makes people really unhappy. Not forget how much it's going to cost us all. It's kind of a long-winded way of addressing that. By the way, Maroon 5 had to cancel their press conference at the Super Bowl. I'm going to the Super Bowl. I think I told you guys that before. And so Maroon 5 was doing their press conference to talk about their, the halftime show. And it was canceled because of all the threats online and the nastiness online toward them, because they shouldn't have been part of the halftime show because it's dishonoring Colin Kaepernick. Are we still talking about Colin Kaepernick? You guys learn about people in sports. We don't want politics in our sports. We have politics too much every other aspect of our life. I just want to watch the LA Rams beat the New England Patriots. That's all I want to watch. Okay? I'm rooting for the Rams. I wouldn't bet against Brady, though. I'd root for the Rams. I don't really care because I wanted Drew Brees. But I'm going anyway. I've never been to a Super Bowl, so I've decided to go. Thank you for that invitation, by the way. Anyway, so Maroon 5 now. You think they're a bunch of conservatives? So they're eating their own people. By the way, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and I'm enjoying it. And if you want to keep hearing it and hearing it live, well, you've got to be part of the legacy box generation. What does that mean? I know you all have a bunch of VHS tapes lying around. You certainly have, photos. Sometimes they're photos from 20 years ago. You haven't looked at them. Or then you find them in a drawer somewhere and I wish I could do something with these. But you don't have time. You're not going to sit and put them in an album. You won't. Maybe once in a while you'll print one out. But usually they're just in a box and they're in the basement. And you move them every time you move. So you move your boxes of photos from move to move. It's just stupid. So Legacy Box is easy. All you do is you send them your VHS tapes, audio tapes, or your photos, and then they'll send back to you a thumb drive or a DVD, and it's all digitized. However you want it, and with the format you want it, they'll do it. So it's DVD, digital download, or a thumb drive. And Legacy Box turns you into the hero of the house because now you can watch all this stuff, look at it, clean up the mess, make yourself feel better. Okay, very easy. Listen to this. I love this. Is this right? Wow. LegacyBox.com/Laura. You get 40% off your first order. Go to LegacyBox.com/Laura and save 40% today. Get started preserving your past. All right, you're listening to the Laura Ingraham podcast. Always delighted you're with us. The man that you've seen, he's been jeered at and screamed at. He's been subjected to an over-the-top Gestapo-like raid on his house. Yes, I'm saying Gestapo-like because of the sheer number of vehicles that turned up in his Florida home. He lives on a canal. And the SWAT team, they got the tactical gear. Roger Stone, of course, at his arraignment yesterday pled not guilty, and he is charged with lying to Congress, witness tampering, and he joins us now. I'm delighted he is with us. Roger, how are you today?
Well, it's almost like a nightmare. It's kind of surreal, something out of a movie. I mean, there's nothing quite like opening the front door of your house and looking down the barrel of two assault weapons aren't aimed at your chest. From guys wearing SWAT gear and night vision goggles, 29 agents swarming surrounding my house, literally surrounding my house, 2 amphibious units from the FBI with armed frogmen on the.
But they were polite, right? We've heard this. I've already I went through the whole thing on the show.
Unbelievable.
So it's unbelievable. But they were nice to you once they got in with their tactical gear, right? Did you offer them coffee? Like, how did it work?
No, it didn't really work like didn't really work like that. I was walked out onto the street in my shorts and bare feet, and they cleared the house, and they allowed me to go back in with an agent. They unhandcuffed me long enough to put on a pair of pants and some shoes, and change my shirt, and then they put the handcuffs back on, and I was taken to an FBI processing center, still in the cuffs. It was then, once we got in the car, they were very courteous, asked me if I wanted any water, and I drank some water. I asked to see the particulars of what I had been arrested for. They showed me a one-page sheet that didn't tell me much. For making false statement, but not the actual indictment. I still hadn't read the indictment until late in the day. I asked to talk to my attorney. They said, your attorney's been notified. Too bad they didn't notify him the day before.
Yeah, why didn't they? Because I know you had mentioned this on TV with me and on other occasions that you believed you were going to be indicted. So given the fact that you believed you were going to be indicted and you had said this, and they had all this time. I mean, if they really worried about you destroying evidence, you had 2 years to destroy evidence. I mean, why? I mean, you know what I mean? It doesn't really make sense. Like lock down the house, like arrest you that way. If that was your goal to destroy evidence, you had ample time long before the day that you were arrested to do that.
Well, and to be clear, I have destroyed nothing, no evidence.
I know. You already said that on TV last night. You didn't destroy anything. You said this.
My attorneys let them know that I was represented well over a year ago. They knew who to contact in the event that they wanted to, inform me that I had been indicted. They could have called my lawyers, and I would have turned myself in peacefully. So this was meant for maximum impact. It's designed to poison the jury pool, to depict me as public enemy number one, a dangerous criminal. It's incredibly over the top. It's just the experience itself is just, it's Kafkaesque. I mean, it's surreal. And they must spend $500,000 on it. It just, I don't know, it boggles the mind.
Now, you just said a few hours ago that the president's administration, Donald Trump's presidency, is in peril. And is this just tagged at Mueller or beyond Mueller?
No, I think that I've always thought that the final Mueller report, since I don't believe a sitting president can be indicted based on legal decisions both during the Nixon and Clinton administrations, but I think Mr. Mueller's final report will be the basis for articles of impeachment by the House Democrats. On the other hand, if they didn't like the color of the necktie he wore, they would vote articles of impeachment, and then it would move to the Senate. Now, those Republicans or Trump supporters who comfort themselves saying, well, it will never get 2/3, maybe they've forgotten the hysteria that was whipped up around Judge Brett Kavanaugh on the basis of nothing, on the basis of zero. But Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed by one vote. Mm-hmm. So you'll see the same type of hysteria whipped up, Russophobia. We already saw the beginning of it last week when we read, I guess almost 2 weeks ago now, in the New York Times that the FBI had launched an investigation into whether Donald Trump was an active agent of the Russian state. We then had this whole story that Trump met privately with Putin, and there were no transcripts, and we had to call the translators.
It's been one thing after another. Ever since he won the president, even before he won the presidency, it's been one thing after another. I mean, there isn't. I don't think there has been a moment where this president has been able to govern the country and focus on the priorities of the country without worrying about being accused of doing something with someone to the detriment of his oath of office. It's been just one thing after another.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton meets multiple times with Vladimir Putin with no one present during her time as Secretary of State, but we don't know what happened in those meetings.
No, well, of course not. And do you trust the incoming Attorney General, Bill Barr, to do a fine job or a good job or a fair job of overseeing this special counsel?
I saw in his confirmation hearings that he said that he would not let politics interfere with the process. Well, the fact that the two prosecutors leading the prosecution of me both worked for Hillary Clinton, to me that seems like a political conflict of interest, a genuine conflict of interest. Is he going to deal with that? Is he going to deal with the partisan nature of an inquiry that doesn't look into the illegal and illicit use of FISA warrants? And there are more than one, Laura. There are more than, it's not just Carter Page, I assure you. Are they going to look into the use of the FBI to infiltrate Donald Trump's campaign? One of the things I honestly forgot before the House Intelligence Committee was that I had been approached by this man, Henry Greenberg. Henry Greenberg came to me through Michael Caputo. He proposed selling me dirt on Hillary Clinton. As the Washington Post accurately reported, I flatly turned him down. The meeting took 12 minutes. He was an ethnic Russian. I completely forgot this. It's true. But Henry Greenberg turns out to be an FBI informant. Wow. Incredible. In the country on an informant's visa, approaching me in May of 2016. Why isn't that mentioned in the indictment? Well, where's the indictment for forgetting that matter? Well, maybe they don't want to know who Henry Greenberg really was, or don't want the American people to know who he really was and who sent him, because he was only in the country on the approval of an FBI informant's warrant out of the Miami FBI office.
We're talking to Roger Stone here on the Laura Ingraham podcast. Chris Christie was on ABC talking about your case and said the following.
You heard Roger Stone say this is a thin indictment.
Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, the fact of the matter is that every white-collar defendant in this circumstance, when they're confronted with a bunch of documents of their own making, try to say that they're out of context. If I had a nickel for every time I had a defendant tell me when I was U.S. attorney it was out of context, I'd be a rich guy, and I'm not. So the fact is that, he's got a problem, because they've got all these emails and text messages that he created that tell a pretty clear story.
Your reaction to his comments? Obviously, he hasn't
stunningly irresponsible, having never read 4.5 hours of my testimony. Incredibly irresponsible, having never read the emails and text message cited in context. Governor Christie and I have brawled in New Jersey over New Jersey politics. Perhaps that is animus, but I'm not interested in attacking Governor Christie. He would have certainly been a better attorney general than Jeff Sessions.
Well, I think again, I think Christie is an example of someone who, he has difficulties with Kushner because of prosecuting his dad and so forth. But when it's good to keep your friends close and your difficult friends close in the end. And I think it was a mistake for I not to bring him in. I think they should have done that, and now
I agree with
huge mistake.
I think he's a very able man. Of that, there is no doubt.
Roger Stone, I know we're going to check back with you frequently. We wish you the very best. And what's your website to donate to your fund?
StoneDefenseFund.com. My legal defense is I'm looking at $2 million in legal bills coming up. They have destroyed me financially. I am flat broke. I have to appeal to the public, but I intend to fight. I'm fighting for my life. My life is in your hands. Please go to StoneDefenseFund.com.
Roger Stone here on the Laura Ingraham podcast. Roger, thanks so much. And coming up, a female rancher, from Animas, New Mexico, tells us what it's like to live on the border and the stories you will not believe.
Would you be willing to vote for some border security money, wall money, barrier money, to give permanent protection to DACA children, DACA young people?
Let me be very clear. I'm not going to vote for a wall under any circumstances, and I do support border security. And if we want to talk about that, let's do that. And let's talk about what really accomplishes border security, which is let's upgrade the technology. Let's look at the fact that the folks who are working on border security on the ground know that they need upgraded infrastructure around things like drones, and they need cameras. So, yes, I'm all for increased border security where we need it. I am not for a wall.
Well, of course, if she bothered to actually care about what the Border Patrol say about a wall, well, maybe Kamala Harris, the it girl of the moment for the progressives, maybe she would think differently.
The fencing that we currently have can be defeated. Anybody can come up to that fence with a welding torch and cut a hole in it. In fact, they have. I personally was assigned to find holes in the fence. My brother was assigned for 3 years to patch holes as a Border Patrol agent, to patch holes in the fence. And that was a daily activity that he was doing. So yes, we absolutely have to have a barrier that can't be defeated. And if we do a wall and we do it properly on the border, we can in fact effectuate a better arrest rate. We can in fact secure the border. I'm 100% positive that can happen.
Joining us now is Tricia Elbrock. She's a rancher and a business owner who lives in Animas, New Mexico, near our southern border. She has quite a story to tell. Tricia, well, Kamala Harris says we don't need a wall. I know your view on that. The view of many ranchers is, well, we need a wall. We need a lot of stuff, but we definitely will need to slow the traffic that's crossing the border. But specifically with your experience, what could you tell us about life at the border to illustrate just how bad and how dangerous it's become with the cartels and their easy access to America?
Okay, yes, we do need a wall in certain areas, and then where we can't put a wall, then you need, drones, extra men on the ground. They also need to man that wall, but we definitely do need a wall in certain areas. But we've got masses of illegals coming across at the port of entry in Antelope Wells, which is only manned from 10 o'clock in the morning to 4 in the afternoon from Monday through Fridays, and it's not manned on the weekends. So that is our weakest point along the border, and they're coming through in groves, anywhere from 100 people to 400 people at a time. And then they have to be, when they surrender and want medical help, then they have to be bused 90 miles to Lordsburg, New Mexico, which is about 100 miles from the Antelope Wells, which is 40 miles from Animas. And when you have, 400 people in a facility that can only handle 100, you got mass deplorable conditions. We also provided porta potties, and of course the conditions of those porta potties were not good, because 4 porta potties is not going to handle. But we got masses coming across, and with that, there are a lot of sick people, which put a strain on our county. Our county's only like 38 to 4,000 square miles, and we've got a total of maybe 4,000 people in our county, and we only have 4 deputies to service our county. And so and then when they bring those people across the border into and we don't have a hospital here, all we have is clinics and EMT, so our clinics are being overwhelmed to treat the people that are coming across.
Yeah, it's a disaster. Tricia, we get it. The hospitals are overrun. The people are fed up. You got bad medical situation. Tell me about your employee who was kidnapped before we let you go. Okay. In December, we also service water. We're all private wells, private septics. We take care of all this ranch down there at near the border. Well, he went to service a water problem in December 7th, 2015. And he was overpowered he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. There was 3 truckloads of drugs that cut through the barbed wire fence, and they got 1 truck stuck, and they, apprehended my man with our truck trying to pull theirs out, and it couldn't, so they threw all of our equipment and tools out. They kidnapped my guy, stole our truck, and piled all the drugs onto our truck and waited so dark to come out of there. They tore all the electronics out of that truck so they couldn't have lights, or in case we had a tracer on it. So then when he didn't show up at dark, his wife called. He always called because there's no cell service down there. So when he got in cell service, he would call his wife, and he didn't call. And at 8 o'clock, we went out searching. Okay, so what happened? What's the bottom line? What's the bottom line here? That we got him back alive, but we got drug cartels. And the cartels are everywhere. Drugs are coming through here. This is a corridor for drugs. Why do you stay? I have a human interest question. Why do you stay? I got to say, I wouldn't stay. If my country and my county was not protecting my property and my people, I would hightail it out of there. I wouldn't even stay.
Well,
why do you stay?
We had a big meeting because this is our livelihood. I've got a ranch. I employ 18 people here. There's farmers and ranches here. This is our livelihood. Where in the hell are we going to go?
Yeah, that's your home.
And we service all southeast Arizona and southwest New Mexico. We have an obligation to our communities here. But yes, people, FBI after the kidnapping asked us why we stay. Well, you're going to turn this over to the cartels? Is this going to turn it over to Mexico and say, okay, anything below Highway 9 you can have? No, we're not going to do that.
But so I want everyone who's listening to the Laura Ingraham podcast to just take a breath with us and focus on what Tricia Elbrock, who owns this ranch in New Mexico at the border, what she just said. She's a woman, a business owner, employs people. She's a native of this area. This is her home. This is her homeland. And what she's saying is she owes an obligation to her customers and her employees. My question is, doesn't the county and the country, the federal government, the state government owe an obligation to her as a citizen of New Mexico? Why don't we have the state government and the federal government owing more of an obligation to the American people and to protect your livelihood, protect your people? You're not asking for handouts. You're asking for the basics, which is we have a border, enforce the darn border. This is a travesty. And didn't you have some cave near your property that you guys found some weapons in?
Yes, on top of my ranch, we have a cave up there that you can see both valleys. And they found semi-automatic rifles, high-powered telescopes, and they stay in there. And, of course, just over the weekend, we found that we've got a scout, and that scout is the guy that goes ahead of the drug run to make sure, what lays ahead. And there is one on our ranch now. We have to be careful. And just last night, my grandson at dark was taking feed out to a water trough for the cows, and he ran into a bunch of illegals with flashlights. And, of course, he hightailed it out of there. But we live this every day. We pack guns ourselves. We have to protect ourselves because our government is not doing it. I think they think more of these illegals than they do of us down here, and that is wrong. And we're getting stirred up around here because our government needs to take care of us. Our state needs to take care of us, and our federal government needs to. We are United States citizens.
Well,
unless we go across the border and they come in here illegally, and then maybe they'll take care of us. But we have a right for our government to take care of us down here, and they're not doing that.
Well, what about your fellow New Mexicans? I mean, you have a very significant Latino Hispanic population in New Mexico. It's almost a majority Latino state at this point, correct? I mean, it's pretty high up there. So what are they saying about this? I mean, they can't be happy.
Employees are Hispanic. Probably half of my employees are Hispanic, and they came across legally. They did it right. They came through the proper channels, and they are against all these illegals coming. They can't go to our clinics and get medical help, because they postpone or cancel an appointment for all these illegals they have to take care of, which strains our resources because we're a poor county and we can't handle that. We need help down here. We only have 4 deputies for our county. We need help. We need more boots on the ground. Our border patrols are being overrun with all these masses of people coming across. They need more border patrol. They need help.
And Susana Martinez was the outgoing Republican governor, former Republican governor of New Mexico, and she was pretty squishy on this border stuff, as I recall. I mean, she was not all that great on the border. But now, you have a Democrat in place, and now what do you expect? What do you think is going to happen now?
I don't expect much, because she's making a push to make New Mexico a sanctuary state, and if she does that, we're all lost down here. She'll go to the border at Santa Teresa, where it's all got walls and the most secure border in New Mexico, and say there's no crisis here. Well, yeah, she's at a secure place with walls and stuff. Sure, there's no crisis there. Come out where the barbed wire fence is, where we live, and experience what we're experiencing. But she won't do that. And we had on KOB news media, And her spokesman came on after she saw that news feed and said that we were anti-Americans and anti-immigration and whatnot. That's not true. I'm all for legal immigration. I am an American citizen, and I believe in our United States Constitution. I think a lot of our politicians are not following that Constitution.
Well, and again, for people who don't remember, the incoming governor, the new governor, not incoming, she's already obviously sworn in, was a Democrat Congresswoman, Michelle Lujan Grisham. And she was heralded as, the first Democratic Latina governor in the United States. And she made a name for herself as one of the strongest critics of Trump on immigration. One of the strongest critics. She beat out Steve Pierce, who's a conservative member of the Freedom Caucus. Right. And now we're going to see how it all works out for New Mexico. So now it's the first time since 2002 you have a Democrat in the governor's mansion in New Mexico. And I think the New Mexico people are going to be very disappointed in how this all plays out for them. I'll let you close it out.
So too. I agree too. We're going to be in trouble if she makes it. If we're a sanctuary state, I don't know what's going to happen. It's sad. I mean, that we don't have enough help and we don't get enough assistance down here as it is, and they make us a sanctuary state. You might as well just open the borders and here you are. I think we ought to just these busloads of immigrant illegals are coming across in Antelope Wells. They need to load them up and take them to Santa Fe and dump them out.
Yeah, near where all the liberals are living in Santa Fe. That's actually really funny. No, they don't want them there. No way. Right. By the way, just to remind everybody, during the election, immigration was not really a top issue in the race, but the polls showed that the two issues which were biggest in this governor's race in New Mexico was the poor quality of public education and the high poverty rate. Well, where do we think that's going to be improved? In the Democrat Party? Are you kidding me? They're just going to bring in more indigent people from all over the world to New Mexico. That's not going to help grow businesses in New Mexico. You're going to have to raise taxes. You're going to drive businesses out of the state, and you're going to be a magnet for more illegal immigration, which just puts a strain on the public schools. All right, we're out of time. We really appreciate your perspective. Thank you so much for joining us. Tricia Elbrock, rancher and business owner, female real pioneer in ranching in New Mexico. We really appreciate her perspective. Caller, let's go to Catherine in Florida. Catherine, welcome.
Hi, Laura.
Hey, welcome.
Here's my thoughts on this. In order for the political process to work, in a democracy, the relevant information has to be disseminated to the public, and it has to be accurate. And right now, the media refuses to do that, and that's why I don't think the political process will work. I think the president will end up having to call on a national emergency or the Secure Defense Act. My thoughts, I guess, as someone who lives in Florida, as an average person, I think the Democrats and everyone have to acknowledge the problem exists and not be in denial. And right now, they're either in denial or they want open borders. There's only two options.
Well, I mean, look, the Democrats already have the facts. They know the facts. You don't think they're that stupid? They know what's going on at the border. Remember back in 2006, it was that really horrible racist guy, xenophobe, Barack Obama, who was bringing up the security concern at our southern border.
Because we live in an age where terrorists are challenging our borders, we cannot allow people to pour into the U.S. undetected, undocumented, and unchecked.
All right, that's all the time we have today on the Laura Ingraham Podcast. So glad you were with us. Remember, you want to be part of the fun? Just email me, ingram.podcast@gmail.com. That's ingram.podcast@gmail.com. Fox News every night, The Ingram Angle, 10 p.m. Eastern. Set your DVR. Follow me on Twitter, @IngramAngle. And remember, all of our sponsors who make this show possible, free to you, mancrates.com. You get 14% off when you spend $100 or more at mancrates.com/Ingram. Stamps.com. Go to stamps.com and type in Ingram for a special offer. And Legacy Box. Go to legacybox.com/Ingram. Save 40% today. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Podcast.